What's up, guys? Welcome back to Dancing in the Moon Knight, our Moon Knight in review, the Marvel Disney Plus series, guys. My name is Kyle, your host. Welcome to Project Potter. If you haven't seen the series before, guys, this is the second episode of the 6-episode kind of mini-series that Marvel's doing. Excited about the first episode, guys. We'll see kind of how I follow up on the second episode, but if you haven't seen the episode before, welcome, guys. Thanks for checking out the channel. I do kind of a recap, my favorite thoughts on the episode, or my favorite scenes, I should say, a favorite character, at least favorite character, score out of 10, and that's pretty much it. So, guys, it kind of follows the same format as my other reviews, but yeah, again, appreciate you guys stopping by, and let's go. So how does episode 2 follow up after incredible episode 1 where there was all this mystery? He's finding an old Motorola phone. What's going on? Who's Mark? Who's Steven? All this stuff, guys. He's being chased in the museum. Really, really good stuff. This one, I would say initially I wasn't as high on. He goes to the museum and, you know, they're like, oh, they say burst pipes, but like, you know, I don't think burst pipes did this. And then he goes over to the security camera and he's like, I just want to let you know, man. He's like, there's going to be some shit that blows your mind. He's like, just mind bending. He's like, all right, dude. He's like, ready, roll the footage. And then as soon as he said like some shit stuff's going to blow your mind, you knew that like nothing was going to show up. So they look at the security footage. It's just Steven running around. And he's like, are you crying? And he's like, yeah. He's like, a little bit. And he's like, okay. He's like, just wait for it. He's like, how long should I be waiting? There's a lot of humor in this episode once again. And it's a pretty funny show, honestly. And then he goes look for a storage locker. And he's like, hey, man. He's like, this is like the 5th one I've been to. He's like, is there something under Stephen Grant? He's like, if not, it might be under Mark. He's like, no surname, just Mark. And he's like, yeah, man, I know who you are. He's like, you've been in here a million times. And he's like, come on, number 43. And he brings him over, and then Steven goes in there, and there's like a cot, and he finds the bag, and there's a gun, the scarab, and all that, bunch of money, and he's like, oh my God, he's like, what's going on here? He's like, it is real. And Mark is in a reflection talking to him, and then throughout the episode, guys, we get this thing that like there's the two personas. There's Mark Spector, of course, who's like the badass American one that like encompasses the Moon Knight suit. He's right now in the reflection. He's kind of on the inside. We learn at the end of the episode, guys, which is really cool, that they switch. So Steven, who's like the nice guy, gives over control to Mark after this fight scene that I will say the fight scene was a little weak. It starts off, guys, and the creature is coming after him after we get this scene with Ethan Hawke's character where he's like, oh, hey, man. He's like, come on in. He's like, we got food. He's like, free food. He's like, there's a theater over there. He's like, it's all good. He's like, you're a vegan? Okay, well, there's good food over there. That didn't really hit for me as much because it was like Ethan Hawke was this kind of like villain character, and then he's like, you know what, man, we're not so bad in here. He's like, come on in. And I thought Ethan Hawke's performance was really good, but I thought it was just kind of a weird turn. And I think it's pronounced Nanshu, if not I forget, but he's the moon god, the Egyptian god, and that's like the bird figure that we see, which is a really cool visual, especially when Steven is like running from the storage locker where Mark is like, let me take control. So really, really cool scene with the lights flickering, everything like very like horror-esque, great stuff there. But yeah, the fight starts off and it's like basically like Layla can't see the monster. It's kind of weird. It looks kind of like low budget, honestly, and it looks goofy. And you know, the people are getting a good laugh out of it, and they're like, oh, there must be some good drugs. And there's some funny bits, but it like went on a little too long for me where I was like, this looks dumb because he's like throwing things at like he's like stopping an invisible wall basically. And I thought it went on a little too long. I think it was a neat effect, and it was cool to see that like only he can see that. But they're like, oh, summon the suit. And then we get a funny moment where he's like falling out of the window, and he summons like just a nice suit that we saw from the previews. And he's like, oh, this is a little different, isn't it? And then he's like, oh, yeah, you said summon the suit. And he's like, yeah, the ancestral suit, you know, of the moon to protect us. He's like, not this, whatever this is. And he's like got the mask still, but it's like a half suit kind of, which is nice. But he's still got like a super strength as you see as he pulled off the bumper and he fights the thing. But Mark is like, give me access, or give me control. And he's like, someone's going to get hurt. And he's like, all right, just this one time, take over. And then, guys, I was like kind of like, I don't know about this episode. And then that scene happens where he switches over to the costume and the theme plays. And I was like, oh my God, dude, what a hype moment. Like awesome Marvel moment where he like the hood comes around him, dude, and the music starts playing and he like takes off the moon, the pieces, the crescent moons basically. And I'm like, oh dude, let's go. It's like a badass Batman. It's like a different version of Batman kind of. So he starts running after it and then they're like, get it out of here. And he starts climbing the like cathedral there and he brings over and then he ends up like impaling the creature on the spike, which is really, really awesome. And then he like just gets the crescent moon, puts it back like we saw in the trailers. Awesome stuff, guys. I'm really excited that we've seen pretty much everything now from the preview in the first couple episodes. So I thought the Layla stuff, where she's like, who are you? She's like, I'm still your wife. And she's like, well, but we're getting a divorce. And she's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, is this your bed? And it's cool because it's clear that like Steven has no idea what's been going on. It's like Mark's been in control. Again, guys, very Mr. Robot vibe. So I really vibe with that stuff. I will say I was a little down on a lot of the episode until that moment where he switches over to the suit, and then Steven ends up inside. And that's like really, really cool. And then they get in a fight and he's like, shut up. And Mark kicks the reflection. So Steven is like, away. And then that's when Nansu or whatever, the bird, the awesome looking bird thing, who's got, I'm growing on the voice. It's a little Venom-esque, but I think it's really cool. And basically Mark and Steven are serving him. And, Ethan Hawke's character tries telling him, like, you don't have to listen to him. Like, he's lying. Or he's like, we find out that he was the former Avatar. And so we don't know what happened there. But obviously, like, Ethan Hawke went off on his own. And we see Ethan Hawke get the scarab at the end, but Layla sees him like kill like a homeless guy or whatever. So it's like, is he judging, or is he just like choosing to kill this guy so there are no witnesses or whatever? That's interesting stuff, guys. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the episode. Hey guys, my favorite character for this one, I think there's pretty strong performances across the board here. But I will say that Nansu, again, if I'm saying that incorrectly, the bird, the moon god, I thought awesome design. There were a couple of times where I was like, this feels a little off, but I love how he's just like standing there, giving me like heavy Death Note vibes, like very much like God that's kind of like funny. I'd be really surprised, honestly, if they didn't get inspiration from Death Note for this. So that's a really, really cool, like supernatural presence that's staying there. And I think it's really cool how he's like, Mark is trying to be in control. And he's like, I thought he wasn't going to be a problem for you. And he's like, you won't, I'll handle it. And he's like, you've shown me that you cannot handle it. And then Mark is like, where are we going? And he's like, where the hell do you think? And the music's playing. And then Mark wakes up and he puts the curtains open and it's Egypt. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really, really cool. So I just thought he was really, really cool. Again, the effects looked really awesome, very terrifying. And then we think it's like the big villain, but it's actually like working with Mark. But it's like, is Ethan Hawke's character the bad guy, or is the moon god the bad guy? It's hard to tell, but obviously like Mark and Steven are kind of under control of this the moon god, and we don't know what's going to happen if they kind of lash out, or like how Ethan Hawke's character got out of it. Why is the scarab so important? I'm sure it's related to that, but yeah, it's a really cool episode, I think. And that was, I think, the coolest part is, or that character, just that imagery is really haunting and very cool effect. Okay, guys, my least favorite character, it actually had to be Layla on this one. Not that her character was necessarily bad. I just think the moments here where she was like, come on, summon the suit. It was like a funny comedic bit, but also like it was a little too on the nose for me. When she comes in, when he's like, oh, give me the scarab, and they're like, we can't give up Layla. And then she comes in and she's like, oh, I have it. And I was like, oh, dude, it felt very anime. And it was just, I don't think it really fit the tone of the show, even though this is more of like a comedic show. There are some very serious undertones and like a lot of stuff about like ancient Egyptian gods and all that. So for her to come in, she was like kind of a badass, but also kind of just like the girlfriend or the wife character. But clearly she's like, we fought side by side for that. She's like, the scarab, because they're like, oh, don't show the scarab. And then she just takes it out and she's like, oh, dude, it's the scarab. But I thought it was weird. It was really just her character's moments, I think, that weren't as good for me. Not necessarily the actress herself, but wasn't a terrible performance, just things that didn't really hit for me. So she kind of by default gets my least favorite character for this one. Okay, guys, that brings us to the score. This is a 9-2 for me. I said I was a little down on this one, and I would say I was around the like mid to high 8s for most of the episode. But dude, the second he summons that suit and Mark takes over and the music's going, I was like, this is hype as shit, dude. Like, this is awesome. And when he was going out there, and again, he like takes the moons out and he's like climbing the building, and then he goes over and they're like battering. Again, he's like a different version of Batman. Almost like a more badass version of Batman, but that's kind of what I was thinking of when he's walking around. But I love how they do like the half suit. That's a really, really funny comedic bit. And also he's kind of like, oh, it looks kind of nice, doesn't it? And it's like, it does look nice, actually. I like the white on white or silver on silver, whatever it is, guys. I thought that was cool, but Steven obviously like doesn't really know how to use the powers. I love the scene of him like punching, and he's like, oh, he's like, how about that? And then like he starts getting wrecked. But again, the effects on that fight, I think were just went on a little too long, a little too like low budget for me, where he's like hanging upside down, like invisible, when like Layla's getting dragged, but you can't see it. And it was like horror tropes, but like it wasn't really working for me. I do really like the fact that like Steven had no idea what was going on, but now we've kind of solved that issue of like, clearly Steven had given control to Mark, but then Mark had given control back to Steven. So it's like, why isn't Mark always in control? Mark seems to know what's going on, and he's like, hey, can't get out of the mirror, because Steven's like, let me get in there. And he's like, no, you're gonna use all of your strength just to be a fly in the wall or whatever. And so that's all really interesting stuff. I think we almost learned a little too much in this episode, but I'm excited to see kind of where the show goes and where it opens up to. Ethan Hawke's character, I thought, I like him more as a mysterious like cult leader. I didn't really love that he like tried to befriend Steven's character in this one, because I was like, this feels a little out of place. So he brings him in, but that was weird. But then he's like, I don't want to use the cane. He's like, I'll use it. But then he ends up using it at the end, and it like summons the creature that goes after him, which is like obviously what happened in the museum too. So it's like, what does he want? He wants the scarab, obviously, but he's got the scarab. So like, is he going to leave Steven and Mark alone? Why do they need to stop him? They're talking about how powerful the scarab is. What does it all mean? It's all, it should be an interesting road, but I think a little bit of the mystery was kind of taken back here. So we'll see kind of where they go next week in Egypt and what that all means for the overall story. But I think a really strong episode. And even though I was down on this one, I mean, still giving it a high score here, guys, because I still really did love a lot of the parts. And even the parts I didn't love as much, I still appreciated it. And then once the hype moments kicked in and once he got in the suit, I was like all in, dude. And then them going to Egypt at the end. So yeah, I think it was kind of a messier puzzle for this one, but I think they put enough pieces together where I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next. Hey guys, well, that's another episode of Dancing in the Moon Knight, our Moon Knight review. Thanks for checking out the channel, guys. Go check out the other content on the channel, like, comment, subscribe. If you did like the content, these go up every Wednesday. I'm very excited, very interested in this Marvel property so far, and we have much stuff coming out. Obviously, guys, Multiverse of Madness is coming out soon, so I love that this is different than anything that Marvel's done so far, but I like how it can kind of not only build the characters and like eventually, hopefully we'll see some Moon Knight crossover with some crazy characters. There's probably going to be hopefully like a big cameo in the series before it's over. So I'm trying to figure out like who that might be or how it would make sense. But until next time, guys, peace.